everyone. Thank you again for joining us on Veteran Voices. And for those of you who are new to Veteran Voices, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mary Kate Saliva, and we are gearing up for an incredible episode today. Super excited. But just before we start, we're going to do a quick programming note. This episode is sponsored by Pegasus Logistics. A great shout out to them. And thank you so much for your sponsorship of Veteran Voices, where we interview those who are serving beyond the uniform. And we are also part of the Supply Chain Now family, where you can, wherever you get your podcasts from. Supply Chain Now is an incredible podcast who also is in partnership with the Guam Human Rights Initiative, a nonprofit that's near and dear to my heart, where they're focusing on human rights issues and through research. So now, without further ado, I want to welcome two of our special guests today before I continue rambling on and on and on and on. So we just had a great chat for this episode, but welcome to the show, John, JW, John Wayne, John Walding, nonetheless, and Tevon Taylor. Thank you for joining us. It sounds like I invited like 5 people to the show, right?
I've got that many personalities, so yeah, you hit it right.
To be on the show, Mary Kate.
Well, thank you both. I'm getting a little like tongue twisted because, you know, like I was mentioning earlier, my grandmother takes note about how I always seem to fly in like a bat out of hell. So, you know, hair's frizzy for those who are just tuning in. I'm like sprinting in to the show, getting stuck in DC rush hour traffic to make this incredible episode. So I'm just grateful for you all for joining me today. And I just wanted to, you know, to kick off for starters, JW, I'm going to start with you about pumping us up with some motivation. Feel free to sing a lyric if you want. I heard you rapping a little bit earlier, but if you want, just drop some motivation for our listeners today.
Yeah, so the motivation that I always give everyone is I tell the story about my first, one of my first experience in special forces at third group. And you know, when you get in there and it's just a total different world than what the conventional Army is. And I'll never will forget our Sergeant Major Eubanks. You know, he was like, if they had a Green Beret action figure, right, sitting in Walmart that you could play with, it'd be him, right? He's just this big barrel-chested black guy with a raspy voice, high and tight haircut, you know, and you could just tell that he just was an awesome guy. And you know, he's been through it all, right? And listening to him tell stories at the end of it, he just said, men, when you're in the foxhole and time gets hard and gets rough and you don't know what to do, all you got to do is dig your heels in, you lean forward and fight hard. And that's what I've just continued with for the rest of my life, is just that such a visual, right, of no matter what it is, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, what have you, when you do get in those, you know, those dark times or uncertain times or just tough times, you just tighten up that chin strap, you dig those heels in, you just lean forward and fight hard, and you're always going to come out better.
No, I absolutely love that. And I think that we had mentioned before our first time talking about, and we'll get to it later in the show with regards to the transition, but I'm a couple years out transitioning off active duty, and I still feel like I'm leaning forward sometimes, you know, face first into the next thing. But no, I love that a little bit of motivation there to pump us up. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Tevon, you know, I'm welcome if you want to call a cadence here, but if you want to follow up with your favorite motivational quote or some drop of some knowledge.
I can't follow John Wayne. You know, all I can say is the caribou in the background, I don't think was smiling when it saw its last breath.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, my motivation, one of the coolest things is to be on a podcast and to join you guys today with John Wayne Walding, because his sacrifice and what he's done for our country, honestly, and not to make this a commercial, but it inspires me, right, to see what he does with veterans, to be part of what he's doing at Gallantry. That's my motivation. So I won't get cliche and read out of a book or give you any other quotes, but I'm just excited to be here today and to associate with good people like you and John Wayne Walding.
Thank you. I mean, much more motivation than we need than that. But honestly, I second that. It's a huge honor. And Scott, our fearless leader of the supply chain now, the programming, when he told me about this particular interview, I was super pumped up because John Wayne, you really do epitomize what it means to be that American hero. Sure, they're gonna have a superhero figure lined up after you at some point. And just shameless plug there that whoever toy makers you need to get with John Wayne here, make his likeness. But
Well,
just super grateful to have you here. So thank you. And
thank you,
so John Wayne,
Tevin, that's too nice. And I'm surprised you didn't bring up the John Wayne quote, life's tough, it's even tougher when you're stupid.
That's my quote
yeah,
too. So
Yeah.
I'm an Aggie.
that's
There
what we
you
gotta
go.
have. Like, we need a placard behind you, Tevin, so we don't forget that when you're on Zoom calls or video calls. But we had that connection talking about John Wayne the actor. That's where my name Mary Kate came from, Mary Kate Danaher
Right.
from The Quiet Man, John Wayne's movie The Quiet Man. So it just worked
I
out great.
love
We
it.
got John Wayne and Mary Kate here in the house. I'm just not a redhead, like a little toned down on the temper. So yeah, so John, for starters, tell us about growing up in Groesbeck, Texas, because I have never been there, nor have I think I've met anybody. You're the first one, so I'm sure you're the town celebrity as well.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. The only person that I guess would be famous, they're not from Groesbeck, but they're 12 miles down the road in a town, Mahia, and that was Anna Nicole Smith, right? So that's about as much talent as we get from where I'm from. And the town it's I jokingly say, well, it is true though. Whenever I was there, we had about 3,500 people in our town, but we had a $10 million football field, right? So it's just a small town that loves, America. They loves God, family, country, and it just has those old school work ethics, and it was always a place that I say that I'm proud to be from, but I'm never going back to. Right?
Mm,
I'm
yes.
glad that I got to have the experience of what it's like there, but it really was a place that you learn what work ethic is. That you learn, just any country values that you have in Texas, think about a bunch of oil people, a bunch of rednecks, and hauling hay in the summers and hunting in the winter, and yeah, it was a good life that really positioned me, to be in the Army. To be quite honest with you, I'll never forget whenever I was in basic training. I always, Ron White eloquently said, he had the right to remain silent, but not the ability. Right? Well, I'm the same
Right.
way. I never will forget the drill sergeant asking, "Hey, has anybody done this harder?" And I raised my hand. I'm like, "Man, you done 2 days in Groesbeck? Not how about hauling hay when it's 100 degrees outside and you got 800 square bales you got to get in the barn by the end of the day. Like, that's hard work. This all we got to do is run around for a little bit." But
Also,
yeah.
I have to ask about what you were mentioning about joining the army. So clearly sound a very American town. I think when folks from the outside the US like think of Americans, they do kind of think of the cowboy. And so it sounds like that sort of, upbringing and traditional American values. But I have to ask, why army? Was there somebody when you were a kid? Do you come from a line of veterans, or why army, not Air Force, for example, Marines?
Well, I want to work for a living. That's why I didn't join the Air Force. I'll give you a longer answer, right? So first of all, I wish I had a better answer to why my name's John Wayne, other than I was born on the 4th of July. So my dad said, and I quote, "You had a cool birthday. You needed a cool name." Right. So I'm like, well, I'm glad you thought about it, a-hole. Right. I'm not stuck with it. But yeah, so that was a huge John Wayne fan, and for sure that was the wisdom behind the namesake. But yeah, that's how I got the name. And for the Army, I always say I'm 100% Texan, right? My mom was Mexican, my dad's a roughneck, right? So I grew up oil and tacos, right? That's kind of how I grew up. But we didn't have a big military background. Again, going back to oil, my dad was a roughneck. My granddaddy, I don't think he graduated high school, and started roughnecking when he was 14 years old and worked his way all the way up to being the boss of the whole rig. right? And that's where my lineage comes from, and how did I get to the Army? It's just an act of God. I never will forget. This gives you a glimpse into my mindset to whenever I commit and I go all in, and it's a drag race to the end, right? Let's just barrel down. And so my birthday's July 4th, right? On July 5th, I just realized, that, man, I really need to have a better purpose, a job with a meaning. Like I said, Groesbeck doesn't have a lot of, aspiration, right? It's just that small town. And so whenever I had that birthday, I was like, I really need to do something else, something bigger that meant more. And just so happened to have a buddy of mine that he was in the Army and told me about what he was doing. And it's funny when I first heard, I'm like, man, you got to get up and do PT at 6:30. That's early, right? And I ended up becoming a Green Beret, so I guess I kind of liked it. But yeah, again,
what year did you join?
Well, I was in basic training September of 2001. So if you remember what happened September 11th, 2001. So it goes back to my mindset, right? So July 5th, I realized, okay, I need a real job. By August 16th, I was in basic training. So within 45 days, I'd already found a recruiter, got signed up, did through MEPS, got a date, and here I am serving my country. And the rest is history.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, again, just that was such an unique time for our nation too, and for you to be at basic training as a young soldier, but it's still taking with you, instilling all those American values when you first step foot at basic training. I just have to ask about, did you know at that time that you wanted to go into special forces? Like, did you know that you wanted to go and be in special operations at all at that time? Or were you just like, I don't really care where they send me, where they take me at this point?
Yeah, at the time, the recruiter got me, right. He said, hey, you want to shoot missiles? I was like, heck yeah, who don't, right? And so I joined the Army to shoot missiles, not become a Green Beret. I really was fairly ignorant when it comes to really what the Army had to offer, right? I honestly didn't even know what Green Berets did at the time or anything of that sort. But I obviously was in basic when the towers fell, and that was talk about a catalyst, right? From one mindset to the next. That was earth shattering. I think a lot of people forget that before 2001, really the pull to join the Army was like, hey, come get some college money, right? Serve your country for a little bit. We'll get paid for some college and all that, GI Bill this and all that stuff. And yeah, for sure, serve your country is a, significant and the majority, part of the conversation, but definitely, there is more to that. And that's, really what I was thinking at the time. But again, the towers fell, and I thought it was a joke at first, right? Because I'm in basic, and all I know is the drill sergeants are telling me we're going to war, right? And we pull back in, start doing guard and everything, and about 2:00 in the morning, we're watching the TV, and at first I was like, man, this is like some Hollywood stuff here, right? Because I thought they had the TV was recording to make you think you're going to war, but finally about 2:00, I realized, okay, this is real, and obviously from there, whenever I realized, I didn't ever know just how good I was until I joined the Army. And going back to the mindset of in a small town, it's a very practical mindset, right? It's not a, hey, you can do anything that you want if you set your mind to. It's a, hey, you need to get yourself a job, right? Like get your head out of the clouds, go to work. And that's kind of always been the mindset that I've had, is just, hey, I'm just going to, go to work and figure it out, rather than what is this awesomeness up here that I can, strive for and hopefully one day achieve. And until I was in the Army and I had somebody, believe in me and say, hey, I think you can do this, or, whenever you're in a group and I'm toward the front of that pack, I'm like, wow, I didn't know I was this awesome. Right. And I saw my first Green Beret and I saw what they were doing downrange, and that's whenever I had that mindset of, hey, you know what, if he can do it, I bet you I can figure that out too. And went to selection in 2005, and fortunately was selected, then got to don the coveted Green Beret about 1.5 years, 2 years later.
Oh, that's amazing. Honestly, incredible with the pathway that you didn't come in saying I wanted to be in the special forces. It was something that you saw that, and I tell that to my young soldiers. Again, love having another fellow Army veteran on the show. But I tell my soldiers about that, about just exploring their options. And I love when they come in and they're all doe-eyed and it's like rainbows and sunshine. They're super hua, super motivated, but you don't realize like that impact that you have on those young soldiers. Like when you are doing your job, like the monotony of it may not think it's as cool, but there's those behind you looking up to you and thinking, what a badass, in
Yeah.
its simplest terms. Right, Tevin, I see you looking at it. Did you have an idea really of how do you envision special forces? I have to ask you, you see John Wayne is this like superhero, right?
Well, everything a civilian thinks of special forces is what we see on TV, right? They're always the heroes. They're always the ones that dodge bullets. Somehow they have more ammunition than anybody else. That's bad. I lost lights. So somebody didn't pay the electric bill here, but special forces. I mean, when I met John Wayne, it's exactly what I expected in the movies. The difference is, you don't know the nitty gritty of seeing your buddies get shot. I mean, John Wayne losing a leg. I mean, some of the things you hear about the negative part of war and fighting for your country is people are going to lose their lives, people are going to lose limbs, people are going to have a huge impact to their families and their futures. But how you take that and translate it into our freedom and what we have today is amazing. And special forces do, to me, they're like, not to translate it into logistics and freight forwarding, but they're kind of, they slide in between the larger elements of our forces to make sure that we get things done and America continues to be the free country we are. So like I said, it's always in the movies, we always see the good part of it, but there's the difficult part too, and the sacrifice. And that's why I appreciate what I know about John Wayne and what he's doing today.
Well, that's one thing that I always try to do, right, Tevin? I'm glad you brought that up. Is because whenever if I ever give a speech to a crowd, and Tevin's heard me say it, I always say never believe my resume, right? Because it's awesome, right? John Wayne, born on 4th of July, Green Beret, Silver Star, Bronze, all this stuff, right? I'm still just this human, and I'm just that little country boy kid from Groesbeck, Texas, that we experience things that people never even fathom, and there is a downside to that. And I make absolutely sure that when I do talk about my service, I give both the good and the bad, because they're, in my mind, they're just as significant, equally significant. And to Tevin's point, learn about the grief that we've had to deal with. Like I say a lot is the Army teaches me how to deal death, but not how to deal with it.
Yes.
Right. And what a powerful statement that is when you really take a step back and really unpack what that means. Right. And especially not to like how I am a 42-year-old man, but at the time as a Green Beret, a 27-year-old young man, right, and having to deal with such significant life problems over and over and over again, right? It's not just once. The death that I've had to deal with, most people don't see in 3 lifetimes, right? And so anyway, I just want to make sure that people understand, it's not just, to Tevin's point about the movies, right? Which, by the way, Tevin, that's all true. Everything, John J. Rambo is just like we are, yeah. But don't believe in all the we can do the fun stuff, jumping out of airplanes, blowing indoors, night vision this and all that good stuff. But we do go home to our families and have to deal with the consequences of war.
No, that was such a great point. I know you mentioned about how you're just human, but I would dare to say that you're a bit superhuman in the sense that you are still extremely humble. Like you have this air of humility about you, in addition to all the things that you have achieved and accomplished. And those who are fortunate enough to come back home, they still struggle to face the world, and I think you've taken it head on, like you said earlier, with your bit of motivation there, that you're still leaning forward and knowing that how meaningful, how powerful your story is. And I know we're about to touch in on that, but I just wanted to say that, you say just human, but I think, Tevin and I both look at you like you're a little bit more superhuman than the average human. And I think that, as you said, that God-given path of yours has been a true blessing, and I'm sure has touched so many. And I hope that those listening on the call tune in for this entire episode and re-listen to it, because I know, John Wayne, that you're going to share a lot of incredible things on this show. And I wanted to, if you could talk to us about that spring day in 2008. You've taken us now about donning the coveted Green Beret, which is so well known even by the civilian populace. But now we're a few years in to your time donning that Green Beret. You share a bit more about that.
Yeah, and I always start with what is a Green Beret, right? Just telling people, 90 seconds of, really our core function is unconventional warfare, right? And what does that mean to a civilian? Well, ultimately, it means is we teach them to die for their country than Americans do it, right? That might not be a politically correct way of saying it, but that's really, what's that old age-old adage of saying, teach a man to fish, he feeds forever. Give him a fish, he feeds for a day, right? Well, instead of sending 100 Americans into a village, right, to go fight a bad guy, why don't we send 15 Green Berets to train 1,000, right? That's ultimately, when John F. Kennedy awarded us the donning of the Green Beret in the 60s, it was our job to go to Vietnam and help the Vietnamese fight the Viet Cong. There we go. That's that soup sandwich I was trying to say. But and we've done that ever since, right? And so that day, April 6, 2008, we were fighting with the Afghani commandos, right? They were the Afghan National Army Special Forces, and had some absolute studs, and that's, we trained with them, we lived near them, and we fought with them, and that's what we were. We were doing a great job with it, and this particular day was a kill capture mission with our partner force up at 10,000 feet above sea level in the Nuristan province, in Shock Valley. And if you don't know where that is, if you Google where, a lot of people probably remember one of the first thing Trump did when he got in office was drop the Moab. Everybody remembers the Moab that was dropped, right? Well, that was in the Nuristan province, and that's exactly where we were. And so, nobody had ever been there, not even in the 80s. So the Russians haven't been there. We hadn't been there in GWAT since we'd been there. And so there's no intel, pretty much in or around that area, other than we got from, some single sources on the ground, or any predator defeat on top. And so we thought we were going to get one guy that had about 15 to 20, personal security attachment along with him. And unfortunately, we ended up getting a hornet's nest with about 200 to 250, and I was the assault team 1 leader of that day, right? So you had a special forces team. Again, there was 10 of us there, and we all had our commandos that we were in charge of and fought with. And it was my job to be the first guy in the first team into this village and lock in a house, right? And then the next team would come past me, and we would just leapfrog, to the objective, right, to the X. And I was 40 meters from myself to the first, building into this village, and we got opened up on. And I always say, with the avalanche of gunfire, right, like that, within the first 10 minutes, which I'm sure we've been talking for 15 already, but we had our lead interpreter, CK, got shot in the throat, died on impact. Dylan Bear, he was our RTO guy in charge of comms up to higher, pretty important guy, right? He got shot in the hip. Initial assessment on him was 20 minutes to live. Then we had Luis Morales, who was our 18 Fox, right? Our intel officer. He got shot not once, but twice in the leg, and now here we are, for every one guy injured, you're supposed to have 2 guys to help. So now we got 6 guys out of the fight, and there's only 10 of us on the mountain. So do that math, right? And excuse me, to make a long story short, I know we got a lot more to get into this battle, into this podcast, and there's a lot more I'd rather talk about than the battle. But long story short, 15 Americans went up against 250 Taliban fighters, and after 6.5 hours, there were 70 danger close air strikes that were on that battle. 10 Silver Stars were awarded, which 2 of those were upgraded to the Medal of Honor, which and then we had 8 Purple Hearts. So imagine, a bad day where 10 were on the mountain that day, but 8 of us got shot, right? So if you ever get a bad day at the office, it ain't that bad, right? But they always end it with the best statistic of all, which is 0, right? 0 Americans killed. and just imagine the magnitude of that statement, to where just 10 to 15 guys can go up against 250, and 6.5 hours later we win, right? And it's just a true testament to the war fighters that we have out there fighting for our freedoms.
Just like wow, right, Tevon? I'm sure this isn't the first time, but first time I'm hearing it, I feel like I need a moment. No, but that's honestly, thank you so much for sharing, John Wayne, and again for, like you said, that this running through the statistic there, but there's more than just numbers, and what a profound thing about no Americans killed, but the fact that everything was up against you. But I can see why now that you wanted to start out by saying the value of the Green Beret, because wasn't, like you said, just having so few against so many, but you all are the elite. You're the best of the best, and there's a reason why that you all get sent to areas such as that. And Tevin, what's going through your mind as well? I know you've heard this before, but just share your thoughts with our listeners as well, if you could.
It's there's nothing like the story of what John went through and the other soldiers that day that's more humbling, and puts you in a place of realizing what a great place it is we live, and what sacrifice has happened to get us here, right? I mean, I played softball at a company event last night. My boss is in the dugout, and I hear him telling the story of John Wayne Walding in the dugout to other employees that didn't know this story, right? I worked for a large multinational $100 billion company before going to Pegasus. And I've told people at that company the story of John Wayne Walding, because we do take for granted at times, many times, where we are and what benefits we have in America. And when you hear that story, you have to put yourself back a little bit and go, July 4th, Veterans Day, you think of these holidays, and a lot of people think of cookouts and fireworks, and we got to sit back for a moment. And, John Wayne says it well, where the folks that fought in Vietnam came home and it was a different story. Our heroes that come home now, it's definitely, we support them and embrace them. But, I've got goosebumps right now thinking about this story, and I've heard it multiple times, but it always has an impact, because no matter what, it just, your heart hurts because you know what they went through. And it's just, I'm humbled and appreciative of what John Wayne Walding's done, and all the others like him, right? So there's many John Wayne Waldings out there. So it's just, it's an amazing story. It's obviously got a great ending, because we're on the, there's some that don't have that ending that John Wayne Walding has. But the fact he's turned what he's done into inspiring others and helping others, where you hear the story all around you, and I want to talk about it. But going into what he's done at Gallantry Logistics and pushing for helping veterans and taking care of those that are taking care of us and that's the moral of the story, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because Mary Kate, it by no means is this disrespectful to what I've done, right? But no one ever asked me about April 7th, 2008. Right, everybody wants to know about the Battle of Shock Valley on April 6, 2008, with all the accolades, awards, and again, don't get me wrong, it is awesome. But no one ever asked me about the day that I woke up in a hospital, looking at ceiling tiles, terrified to look.
That's what I wanted to ask you. The thought was crossing my mind about even what you said earlier about coming home, because how do you go from that, which Tevin and I are sitting here and thinking like this is what we see the Green Berets in the movies, to this happening in real life for you. And like you said, coming from a small country town like in Texas, small town Texas, and to something like that, what you experience, and then to come home and put on a switch or whatever it is to process all that. Like you said, the Army doesn't teach us that in JFK Special Warfare School. Like, in SWIC, they're not teaching us about that. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so, and that's like I said before, I care more about this story than the other one, because that's what we're, I always use the term, so what, right?
Yep.
Oh, I did this. So what? What are you doing now? Right. Or, oh, I've got hurt. So what? What are you going to do about it? Right. Because this world, this country specifically, right? And we've gotten so divisive, and everybody gets their feelings hurt so much, and stick their lip out, and they want to be a victim, right? And blame somebody, either I wasn't born here, or I didn't do this, or they make more than me. You can either be a victim or a victor. You choose, right? And that's just my mindset, right? That's where I could have blamed the Army for taking my leg. I could have gotten mad at God, which, by the way, I did all those things that we normally do. And, but I got over it because I realized that, it's up to me on what I'm going to do with it. And you ask the question, the first thing I did was cry, right? You wake up, you look down, and you realize the inevitability of that word, right? I can't walk for the rest of my life. And having to deal with that as a 27-year-old man, that 24 hours earlier could jump out of airplanes, climb mountains, run a 5-minute mile, like all this awesome stuff. Now again, that word can't, I've got to deal with, and I'll try to be as quick as I can with it. But, the first thing that helped me overcome it, was my faith in God, right? Because I realized, still being alive, it just galvanized my faith with him. That it wasn't because I got it out of there. I gave it to him on the battlefield. Said, "Hey God, this is all I got, and it ain't enough. And if I make it out here, it's because of you." And unfortunately, I did make it out of there. And so, that faith really, it took the why me's away, because we all had the why me's, right? Why is this happening to me, right? I'm a good guy. I don't do this or that or whatever. Why is this happening to me? And knowing that first and foremost, the arrogance to think that this is my path that I'm on, right? It's not. It's his path, and it's just my job to do the best that I can on where God has placed me. And so I changed that question. I still ask questions. It's perfectly okay to question God, but the question, instead of why me, it's what are you teaching me? Right? What's the lesson here?
Yep.
What is this that I need to learn? And praying, frankly, that we all need what we need is patience, right? Americans, I want my money and I want it now, right? And I want to know now. And rather than just having, the patience to endure what you're going through and then learn what that lesson is. And for me, the lesson ultimately is that you always grow when you struggle, right? Just absolute fact.
Yes.
And it's a struggle to be one-legged, right? It's a struggle every day to have to put my leg on, deal with nerve pain. I start in my day in a wheelchair every day. That's a struggle. And the lessons that I've learned from this struggle are just absolutely just phenomenal. The first one, you even mentioned it, and warms my heart that you said it. It's humility, right? Tim Kellner put it best. He says, Tim, that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking of yourself less, right? And it's such a powerful statement. And again, there's a lot of ego when it comes to a lot of accomplishment, right? I did this, I did that, I did this. And you start to trick yourself into thinking, man, I got this, right? And
yes.
And to not have this, like literally not have a leg, and to get, force fed that humble pie, it made me realize, holy cow, we can always argue about who's stronger, but we're always stronger together, right? And that's what taught me that humility. And I'll always have that posture going forth, that whenever it's me and Tevon talking, or, whatever the deal, if we're working a deal, it's not about who's leading, it's about how are we doing this together. And that struggle taught me humility. The next thing it brought me was, how about gratitude?
Yes.
Right. Here, was grateful to wake up today. I know I was, right? You talked about having traffic in DC, right? What about being grateful that you have a car to be in traffic to begin with, right? Or gratitude to have the dollar amount to pay for the gas to drive the car. Just all
Absolutely.
those things that people just really don't have. And again, because I struggle with being an amputee every day, I'm grateful for every single step, right? Because it could be worse. Instead of being I'm a right below knee amputee, I could be an above knee amputee. I could be a double amputee, right? I could have no arms, no legs, like Travis Mills. This country has gotten so in this cul-de-sac of stupidity of just chasing happy, right? Because we're all about being happy, right? And just be happy, and just all this. Well, happiness is tied to happenings, right? Something good happens, you're happy, right? Something bad happens, you're sad, and right. If you're always just chasing happy, you're just going to continually let yourself down, and joy is really what you want, and that comes from gratitude. The last thing that really this struggle has taught me, and is why I'm bringing it up now, it's vulnerability. Right? Tell me an alpha man that wants to talk about being vulnerable, right? That's always an uncomfortable conversation. They don't want to talk about it, and I'll dive right into it. I got no problem with it. Why? Because I've taught the genuine and significant value of how great it is to ask for help. Right? Because I'm in a wheelchair. I've got to ask for help, even if something as trivial as my daughter bring me a cup of water, right? Or my wife, hey, I really need your help. And year after year of learning just how much better you are when you do, humble yourself to be vulnerable enough to ask yourself. Mary Kate, very well, that we lose 22 a day to suicide. And
yes.
we know that number is a lot bigger than that, but that's just the stereotype that we've gotten. And how many do you think we could save if we just had them that just learn the vulnerability to say, I need your help, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm so open and honest about, just the value of dealing with that. And so you asked about the transition, and I'm being very long-winded, Mary Kate. So
no, that's so Todd. I was like, when you just mentioned that, even almost struck a chord with me too, because literally on my way stuck in DC traffic, I was on the phone with Military One Source trying to find out resources about counseling for one of my soldiers that asked for help earlier today. And so it's just just knowing what's out there, but having that courage to ask for help. But one of the things too that's been sticking out with me as you've been talking is that sense of purpose. I can hear in your voice that you are empowered by this. But I'm not ignorant to think that every combat veteran or every veteran at all believes in God, but I think that there's a lot of power to be said in that. And forgiveness is another one that really stuck out to me, because you said there was a point, like you said, the first thing you did was cry, but there's a point where you're angry. And I think just that forgiveness piece is really tough for a lot of us. And once we get down to like forgiving ourselves, and I know you mentioned that no American was killed, but in some cases there are Americans killed, and there's that survivor's guilt. But that forgiveness piece is so important. And my favorite hymn is Here I Am, Lord. And, it's like, I've heard you calling in the night, I will go if you lead me. And I just love that hymn so much. And, I sing it in my head when I'm ruck marching, when I'm scared to death jumping out of airplanes. I think that song, I never feel closer to God than when I'm about to jump out of an airplane. But I just wanted to highlight that, because I think it's powerful. There's power in faith. There's power in believing. And, for those of us who believe in God, there's that. But, even if they just believe in a higher power in general to help get them through that point, and forgiveness is one of those.
Well, there's power and purpose.
Yes.
Right. And we all have a purpose. Right. And to your point, whether it's God-given or, I jokingly say, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe in, Buddha or baby Jesus, right? But there's definitely a purpose for you being here. And I'll circle everything to your initial question, which how did I transition? Well, that's how you start. And, service members got to know that you're only as, good to others as you are to yourself, right? And it starts with just having that brutal honesty with yourself, and really every single day get 1% better. Right. Just start working at it. And the better you get, the better you're going to be able to help people. And, and that's what has led me to where I am today. Right. With the partnership with Pegasus and with Gallantry, that 1% better, when I got out of the Army, I didn't have a job. At one point, I was the lead instructor for Chris Kyle's company. which I thought was awesome that the Navy SEAL needed a Green Beret to teach for, right?
Yes.
But before then, I didn't have a job, and I got up every day, and you know what I did? I left. And it was actually a contention point with my wife and I because I didn't have a job. I live in Dallas. It costs a lot of money to drive on the tollways and gas, and we don't have a lot of money. And she's like, "Hey, you need to stick your butt here and save money." And I said, "Babe, for my entire adult life, I've gotten up and gone to work. I don't know where I'm going right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to. I'm going to be able to tell you when I come home, but I promise you, it's worth it, right?" And fortunately, again, meeting this guy that met this guy that met this guy that knew Chris Kyle and got me a job there, and ultimately, what was a great time there, but he unfortunately passed, and after that, I got introduced to the owner of Pegasus, Ken Beam, and his love for veterans and helping others is absolutely unparalleled and second to none. And he's one of the guys that a lot of people want to at one point they just want to say they love vets, put the shoulder on or take a picture and everything, and
That's true.
but they don't want to put their money where their mouth is. And Ken absolutely did that. And we talked about, because he asked me what my purpose was, and I never had anybody ask me that before, right? Before it was like job, J-O-B. That's when gotta go to work, rather not what do you want to do in life. It's like, hey, what's your purpose? And ultimately, that's what gallantry is. It is my purpose. The mission of the purpose of gallantry is to provide the next mission, right? I know firsthand what it's like to have great Americans like Tevon, like Ken, and all the people there to just give me that hand up and genuinely want to help me, because of my service to this country. I want to forever give that back, right? And not only do I want to give that back, I want to give it back on a significant level, right? Instead of just taking a guy out fishing, buy him a fishing pole, what does he do, right? He puts it in the corner and looks at it and says, "Dang, I wish I can go fishing." I want to not only give him a job where he can afford his own fishing pole, but bring him into a community that he's missing from his service, right? Just, hey, come on, I know that you had that there. Let's build this here. And so the culture and community that Pegasus has is absolutely second to none. And I just want to bring people in, give them that culture, give them that sense of purpose, and to know that we're going to hire as many veterans as possible. That's what gets me pumped up every single day. That's my why.
I love that. I mean, yes, and I think that's just a great plug there for our listeners to really dig deep to find your why. Like, take that time. You mentioned patience earlier, and I think there's a level of, once we've experienced, and I keep saying, the badassery that we felt when we were in the special operations community. You're still part of that community even once you hang up the uniform, but there's something in us that we want to continue serving in another capacity, and we sort of flounder. We may continue driving in circles until we find that purpose, but damn, like, once we find it, like, nothing holds us back, right? And I continue to see veterans doing incredible things. You mentioned about Pegasus, and Tevon, if you could come on and just share a little bit more about your work and your mission, and I'm going to then circle back with John Wayne about his Live to Give and what he's working on. But Tevon, please share.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Ken Beam, he mentioned that John Wayne mentioned Ken Beam, who started the company back in 1994. You take an amazing leader like Ken that cares about people, wants to make a difference in people's lives, and also be very client centric. So this little company started in 1994, and in 29 years has grown to over $500 million. I went from a white glove service where you're trying to do in deliveries and do a lot of the niche things that some of the high value type of customers need, to now we're a full end-to-end logistics company. I was actually brought on to look at contract logistics and warehousing. We've got 23 sites. I'm in one of them today, 3 million square feet. And it's amazing to me, because everyone that I know in the industry is like, Pegasus, we haven't heard of Pegasus. You came from this large company to Pegasus. Why? And honestly, it comes to the core values. And I love our core values, because you see a lot of mission statements and you see a lot of core values, and you're like, does the company really live that? Is that really kind of what they're doing? But our core values, the first one is we want to be fanatical and passionate about customer satisfaction. And we really are. It's like, whatever we can do to make that customer happy, let's figure it out. And everyone's all hands on deck, make it happen. And the other thing is, there's no zero-sum games. Everybody wins when you do business with Pegasus. And if everybody's not winning, we got to figure out how everybody wins. It means the customer wins, we win, suppliers win. We look at tomorrow today. So we're always trying to figure out how we can do things differently, how we innovate, how we create things. And the last two things, it's not for everyone. It's only for the best. So, Pegasus is a very unique environment. We work very hard. We play hard. It's an environment that I've never seen. It's a lot of entrepreneurs in the company. We empower the people to make change and to deliver that customer satisfaction. And last and most importantly, the difference is fun. We have fun at Pegasus, and it's great being here. I tell people 27 years into my career, I started in 1996. I'm just shocked it took me this long to find the company that fits what I look at culturally and what I want to do. And I think this company is amazing. And all of a sudden I find out about Gallantry, where, Gallantry, Pegasus really helps power Gallantry's business. John Wayne drives a diversity-owned company. We help him on the transportation and logistics side. And I met him, I go, gosh, I don't think it can get any better than this, because it matches up to exactly what our core values are. And John Wayne, his personality and everything he's doing, it's like, this is awesome. So, a little bit of a pitch there, not trying to do that, but that's Pegasus in a nutshell.
Do.
So it's, amazing
no, I love
company,
that.
good times.
I love that, because it really is a match made in heaven. And I know our listeners weren't as fortunate as me to get to talk to you all in depth as I did prior to this reporting. But you two are hilarious. Just start off with that. And so I love what you just said too about having fun, but there's a level of purpose there, and synergy and matched values. And like I said, I hear it in your voice, Tevon, and I hear it in your voice, John Wayne. I don't always get people that I interact with that can say that they genuinely love what they do. And what a blessing that is, that you both get to say that and get to do it together. So, John Wayne, if I could just, if you could just circle back about your advice. I know you'd mentioned it to me on our first call, just advice for those who are transitioning. And then if you could, go right into what you're doing now with Live to Give, because I think that's something that even those in transition just going to feel super inspired by what you're working on now.
Yeah, the biggest advice that I give to those that are transitioning is just don't give up, right? Like, embrace the suck, right? That's something that we learned.
Oh gosh, that hasn't changed since.
The suck in the Army is the suck in the civilian world, right? And just realize, really not a couple things, right? One, have a realistic expectation, right? When you're getting out at the pinnacle of your professional career in the military, but don't expect to translate exactly that into the civilian world, right? You got to come back down a little bit to build up. Yeah, I own a company and I'm the CEO and got, people hired and it's awesome. We're doing, millions in revenue and all that stuff. But guess what I did when I first got here? I sat in a cubicle next to a 20-year-old kid learning how to route freight, right? Like I humbled myself to realize I know where I want to be. Right. I got out here, but I'm going to come down here for a little bit and again, humble myself to learn the business, at least enough to know that by the time I'm really taking the reins on this thing that I can. Right. So just have that realistic, don't give up is the first thing, have a realistic expectation. And again, ask for help. There are so many people, not only that can help, but genuinely want to help. That's one of the things that I've learned since being, I got shot 2008. And from that day to today, when I first, went on a wounded veteran event and these people wanted to give you this or take you here or whatever, it really is awkward, right? You don't want it. You don't, I don't need this. I don't need that. Well, I started realizing that it's not about me, right? It's about us, right? They can't serve. They can't go down there and pull that trigger, but I can. But what they can do, since I went and did that, they can help me afterwards, right? And it really is a two-way street. So this is something that not only, can they do it, but they want to do it. So, get over yourself a little bit and allow that person to help you. And I'm telling you, you're always going to be better for it, right? Because it's just a win-win situation. To Tevon's point, right? That their culture, if you notice what their core values are, they sound a lot like special operations, right? It's only for the best, right? Looking for tomorrow. So we're all about technology. We are fanatically and passionate about what we do, right? I promise I didn't become a Green Beret because I like it. I did it because I love it. If I only liked it, I'd quit because it's that hard. And guess what? It's fun being a Green Beret, right? And so there's a lot of synergies that we have. And it's because I've asked for help, and I went into there, and they've helped me, get me to where I can. And because of that, we're going to hire a bunch of people. And so that's one thing, the quick three things that I tell people, that are transitioning is just don't give up, have a realistic expectation, right? Just be that, that thing, and never, get over yourself, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
I love that. And what I was actually picturing at the tail end of what you just said was thinking about those ruck marches. I remember when I was at selection, for PSYOP, I saw a team of SF guys going at SFAS going by, and here we are like taking a knee with our small packs, and I swear this guy had to have been carrying 90 pounds on his back. And I just couldn't believe, like, he was hunched over, but he was carrying it, and he wasn't much taller than I was, but he was carrying that weight. And I just think about that, about how they ingrain it in us to carry our own load, and that sticks with us even when we're transitioning out, that we got to carry our own weight. Like, this is our problem, not somebody else's. This is my family to take care of. I'm the breadwinner. I got to figure this out. I got to find answers myself. But there's also that aspect of the team, and and I sick of that time where I could feel my body starting to shut down from the wear and tear on this one ruck march, and I had a soldier walk by, and he pulled out a piece of pound cake out of his cargo pocket. I don't know, probably from an MRE. It didn't even have any wrapping on it. He just hands it over to me with his dirty hand. I just took that little piece of pound cake and put it in my mouth, and I was like, brother, you just saved my life. I feel like, and it's just such a small example of just how, he saw dire need is just a funny story there of, and just helping me. But in all seriousness, I think that of that analogy of just getting ingrained in us to carry our own load. But in this case, it's okay. Like you said, it's okay to cry. It's okay to know that you've reached what you can do at that time. It doesn't mean that you can't get stronger and better and have the answers laid down the road, but it's time to ask for help, and it's okay to do so.
Yeah, and if something bad happens, again, don't quit, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's had a bad haircut before. Doesn't mean you stop getting haircuts, right?
That's a great analogy too.
Yeah,
I can visualize that one.
Yeah, so if you go out there and you do ask for help, or this opportunity you thought was great didn't turn out to be great, well, just keep trying. It'll get there. That relentlessness of never quitting, never give up, like we learned in the military. Just transfer it to the civilian side, and you're going to be better for it. Like, so going back to, so when you asked me about Live to Give, that's something that I founded a few years ago with a few other people. That the whole purpose of that is, we want to be like the Newman's Own for veterans. When you go into whatever grocery it is, you see the Newman's Own. Well, they give, their proceeds to charities, right? And that's what we want to do. Every bottle of water that you buy, we give half back to veteran and first responder charities, right? That's just, we want your hand, 3 inches to the right, take it off Smart Water, put it on Live to Give, and change lives. And that's, we got a great team doing that. I'm definitely focused on the day-to-day in gallantry, and that's where I do the majority of my time. But I'm the unfortunate face of the franchise for
oh yeah, come on. And, tell us, John, where's Live to Give? Where can listeners find what you the work that you're doing? Is it all over?
Yeah, we're a regional company right now. We are in HEB, 245 HEBs, a lot of stuff in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, and we're trying to get into AFES. So if you know anybody at AFES, let us know. I tell you, it's easier to fight the Taliban to get an AFES, right? It was one of those things. I didn't know it was so hard to get into there. It would be a slam dunk, right? You mean you give back to veterans? Sure, come get on post. But it's been a tough ride there than we thought. But
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
No, I love that. And for Gallantry Global Logistics, so mentioning some of the work, Tevin, that you're doing with John Wayne, was there anything y'all got stewing right now that you wanted to highlight?
We're working on a lot of obviously large government contractor type of scenarios, but look, if there's an opportunity for anyone that's got freight moving and there's a consequence of failure and they need a company to support them and give them kind of the white glove service, if you will, look, that's what we're targeting. Not every customer is right fit. So, I would say there's usually a little velocity and volume to the shipments as well. But, the cool thing here is John Wayne and we can jump in and support our customers, and those that need some support, they can reach me. It's very easy. TTaylor@pegasuslogistics.com. And I don't usually give my phone number out when the lights go off in this building. But I will say this: everyone has my old phone number from my previous experience, and it's baffling when people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I've called you 10 times. You're not reaching back out to me." I'm like, my phone number changed. So I would say this: go to my LinkedIn. My new phone number's out there, but I would love to engage with any clients that need any
That's great
support with logistics.
Thank you so much, and we'll be sure to put that on our site as well, and our posts of how folks can reach out to you.
Awesome.
And John Wayne, I did want to loop back about what you said about supporting first responders, because we've been talking this whole time about veterans and the transition, and could you just highlight real quick about what made you include first responders as well in what you're doing as far as giving back?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very easy answer, right? Because they're the ones that protect us here, right? We go and protect those off the soil, and if we don't have police and fire, we're one incident away from anarchy, and they go and they hold that front line here just as much as we do over there, and so it was just a very natural and easy conversation to have when we started this about, hey, okay, where's our left and right limit, right? Who are we going to help? It's hard getting Air Force in. We're like, I guess we'll let them in. I'm kidding, but it was real easy, conversation to say, hey, we need to have the first responder is, personally, my wife's whole side of her family are all first responders, and yeah, and it's just something that we all got to make sure we remember.
No, I love that, and you hit the nail on the head, talking about they're the ones fighting here at home on the home front. So protecting both and making sure that those resources are available to them require funding, right, for it to support veterans and first responders, whether it's their transition or beyond, or even those still donning the uniform. So thank you so much, John Wayne and Tevin. I know I could continue talking to you all day, and we may have to welcome you all back anytime to join us on Veteran Voices, where we continue to interview veterans serving beyond the uniform, and you are certainly doing that times tenfold. So, John Wayne, how can our listeners get a hold of you? How can they support your efforts? Where should they go?
That's a good question. Definitely, gallantrylogistics.com is the website for our logistics company. Obviously, I don't do social media. I'm one of those guys. I kind of run from all that, and but I do have a LinkedIn, so you can look me up on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's private or not, but I'm not on there often, but definitely reach out to me there, and yeah, that's how you get in touch with us.
Fantastic. And and Tevin, anything, I know you say you're about sharing the old number. Did you have anything else about as far as how folks can are you on LinkedIn? I mean, as far I know we're connected on LinkedIn, but are you welcoming everybody listening?
Yeah, I'm a LinkedIn I won't say the word, but yeah, I absolutely use LinkedIn quite a bit. I'm in sales. LinkedIn is the best tool to be connected in the network, so I absolutely
he's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great tool for me. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, but I don't use it. It's just I'm the guy that just looks at it and goes, "Gosh, these people are kind of silly." But
Well, Ted, I'm so glad that you dressed up for us today too. Thank you so much for.
I got a haircut. I almost shaved. I took a shower. It was just for John Wayne. Yeah, I feel like it took me 3 months to grow this beard. Look at him. He's grizzly looking.
I trimmed mine. Yeah.
That's great. Mary Kate, you've been awesome. I'm not used to being so quiet on these, but I don't need to talk. I got John Wayne Walding. He's got the greatest story on the planet. So this is the first time I've done a podcast, and I literally had to bite my tongue because I have nothing to say compared to what he's going to tell you.
No, I don't know about that, but honestly, both of you have been such a joy, and that's why I feel like we almost need like a comedy run, because it's just like rapid fire here, like how quick you guys are back at each other. But I mean, that's the love and the brotherhood underneath all of it, right? It's like, yeah, there's the business piece, the for-profit piece that keeps the lights on, but there's this piece that's willing to drop whatever you got going on to help one another out. And so that's why I love doing this. That's why I love connecting and bridging that gap with our listeners, with folks like yourselves. John Wayne, American hero here, thank you so much again for your service and sacrifice, and to your wife, your daughter, your family for standing by you through the thick and thin. Just wanted to shout out to them as well, because I think that just the family piece is so important. And right, and sending out that God bless to everybody. Everybody tuning in, thank you so much for tuning into Veteran Voices. Tune into wherever you get your podcast from, and please join us again to hear more stories from other veterans continuing to serve beyond the uniform. And with that, I thank you all. Do good and be the change that's needed. As John Wayne said, go out there, find your purpose, and don't quit, don't give up. We'll see you all next time.